It is worth noting here that on this particular board, Doug Polk should actually be doing a whole lot of checking. You may say, why in the world should he check on this ace-high board? And it's because it's a 4-bet pot and the stacks are very, very shallow. Hello everyone, I'm Jonathan Little. Today we have another hand from the 200-400 no-limit Texas Hold'em battle featuring Doug Polk and Daniel Negreanu. So far it's been a back-and-forth match. At the time of me recording this, Daniel Negreanu is down just a few buy-ins, which really isn't all that bad. It's a relatively close to even match. That said, I do think Doug Polk is playing pretty great, fundamentally sound poker so far, which is going to be really tough for Negreanu to beat. So there's a lot of poker left to play, but we will see how it plays out. In this hand, Doug Polk wakes up with the Queen Jack offsuit on the button. Very, very easy raise. If you studied your charts, you should know this is a spot where you should be 3-betting the ace queen suited literally every time. And once it gets back to Doug Polk, now he should 4-bet the Queen Jack offsuit a whopping 5% of the time, and he should call 95% of the time. If you do not have these charts yet, you're missing out. Go to pokercoaching.com/HUNL to get them right now. This time, Doug Polk elects to put in the 4-bet. And now, Negreanu has a pretty easy call with this hand. It's not a hand you can realistically fold. And you don't want to rip it all in or re-raise because that's going to result in Doug Polk calling off with just the absolute best hands, which ace-queen doesn't actually do all that great against. So Negreanu does call, and we see the flop. Before we get to the flop analysis, though, I have a 1-minute video I want to show you that is going to be well worth your time. Mr. Editor, cue the video where we give everything away. Hello, I am Jonathan Little. I'm a professional poker player with over $7 million in live tournament earnings, including 2 World Poker Tour titles. I'm the author of 15 best-selling educational poker books, and more importantly, I have coached thousands of students to succeed at poker. And whenever students come to me for the first time, very often I see them making the same mistakes over and over. And that's why I created pokercoaching.com. Sign up to pokercoaching.com right now with a completely free membership, and you will be coached by elite pros. And you will also learn how to play a good, strong, fundamentally sound strategy. We also have thousands of practice hands and quizzes where you will be able to play a scenario and then hear right after it how a world-class pro would have played that exact same situation. And you'll also meet a vibrant community of other poker players who are actively striving to improve their skills. By studying at Poker Coaching, you will know the right play to make in the vast majority of situations you encounter at the poker table. So for a few days, what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer you Poker Coaching Premium, which normally costs $99 per month, completely for free. No credit cards required or anything like that. I want you to be able to try out the site, use our mobile app, and see everything that Poker Coaching Premium has to offer. So sign up for a free account to pokercoaching.com today. All right, hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you check out pokercoaching.com/all-access to get full access to everything I have available at Poker Coaching Premium. All right, we get to the flop. This is a spot where Daniel Negreanu should check literally every single time. He does opt to check. And now, Doug Polk elects to go for a small bet. You may say, why in the world would you bet small here? It's actually a pretty interesting spot. If we look at the solver, it actually shows that Doug Polk should check this Queen Jack about half the time and bet it about half the time. I know the frequency here is really tiny. You can barely see it. It is worth noting here that on this particular board, Doug Polk should actually be doing a whole lot of checking. You may say, why in the world should he check on this ace-high board? And it's because it's a 4-bet pot and the stacks are very, very shallow. Also notice, Doug Polk has some nut hands, right? Aces, ace, king, ace, queen. But he also has just like a smattering of nothing, right? And also kings, queens, jacks, tens are not especially strong on this board, so he actually should be checking a decent amount of the time. And now, this is a spot where if I was in Daniel Negreanu's shoes, I would call every time. Daniel Negreanu does call, but let me show you what the solver does. Solver actually raises the ace-queen. This GTO poker's hard, right? It's important to note here that Negreanu actually has a decent amount of nut hands here, right? He has ace-queen, which is probably good enough to get it in. Ace-jack, same story. Pocket eights, right, which is basically the nuts. Ace-4 for the nuts, fours for the nuts, and Doug Polk does not have a lot of these hands, right? So this is a weird scenario where, because of the way the ranges line up on this particular board and because of the stack depths, Negreanu should actually be check raising this flop about 30% of the time. That is a lot. I am shocked that he should be check raising that often. And then if he just has nothing, he's just opting to fold for the most part, right? Like we see king queen folding, stuff like 10-9 folding, right? Even some underpairs fold immediately to this small flop bet. This actually shows the power of these small flop bets because it puts your opponents in pretty miserable spots, out of position where they're going to have a tough time realizing their equity. So anyway, this is a spot where Negreanu really should be check raising a large chunk of the time, which is surprising to me. I mean, I'm learning in this process as well. I'm certainly not a world-class heads-up player. I'm very confident both these players are better than me, and I am learning through this process with you. All right, so in this scenario, we do see ace-queen mostly puts in a small 2.5x raise. Cool stuff, right? Anyway, he calls. On the turn, Negreanu checks, and Doug Polk decides to bet again. What do you think about this? Well, now, if we look at the turn, queen jack makes up only a tiny sliver of his range, but this hand actually does bet a third pot basically every single time. Aggressive, huh? And the reason it's betting here is because Polk's range contains a lot of ace-king, which is basically the nuts, ace-queen, which is basically the nuts, and then just a smattering of bluffs. And a lot of these bluffs here are actually going to have flush draws. I know you can barely see them, but there are little slivers of flush draws here. They don't really mind betting. But notice this is a spot where he has a whole load of ace-king, which is really strong, and then just a tiny fraction of a lot of other stuff. It's also kind of neat to see queens, jacks, and tens betting. I'm a little bit surprised that queens, jacks, and tens would want to make a small bet here, given it's pretty easy for Negreanu to have an ace. That said, the solver assumes that Negreanu would check raise a lot of his aces on the flop, right? So maybe the ranges are slightly different in this scenario than the solver perceives them to be, because if Negreanu's like always check calling the flop and doesn't have a check raising range, that's going to negate a lot of what the solver says moving forward. Anyway, this is a spot where I think Negreanu has an easy call. At this point, he wants to keep Polk in with all of his bluffs. Let's go back and check out what the solver does. As you see, lots and lots of calling, because at this point, he really wants to keep Polk in now, because Polk is drawing very thin. Whenever you have an ace, by the way, it's just way less likely you are beat in this scenario, because, like, yeah, you lose to ace-king, but you block ace-king, right? So there's fewer combinations of those, and therefore proportionally more combinations of bluffs in your opponent's range. Not a ton of raising in this scenario. Ace-9 is raising, so the weakest aces essentially are raising. Also, 10-9 suited is raising every once in a while, which is cool to see. Lots of calling, though. Notice king-queen even calls here, but I have to imagine that's with a flush draw. All right, river is a 4, down Negreanu checks. And now, Doug Polk has to figure out if he should check or bluff. What do you do in this spot? Do you check and just give up? Do you bet small, like 15,000 for a fourth pot? Or do you rip it all in? Take a second and actually comment in the comment section below. Doing this is going to go a long way to help you improve your poker skills. So make sure you do that. Go ahead, pause the video, take a second, do it. All right, are we back? Good. It's a cool spot where I think the vast majority of people just check it behind and lose. However, Doug Polk opts to go all in for a little bit more than half pot. And you may say, that is insane. Why in the world would you go all in this scenario? But if you take a look at what the solver recommends, I know you can't see it all that well because it's a tiny fraction of hands, but Queen Jack actually goes all in, along with Ace King, Ace Queen, and all the other aces, plus a lot of sporadic bluffs. And this is a neat scenario where Polk just has a whole lot of Ace King and Ace Queen, which are very, very premium. And basically all the other hands can't really win. They're all like king high and worse. And if you think about it, whenever he does shove here, Negreanu's going to be in a pretty bad spot if he does have a hand like the king high flush or pocket tens, right? These are hands that are very likely to fold to this river jam. So I realize that Polk has this jack of spades, which is not quite ideal, I suppose. It does block hands like pocket jacks that may fold and like king jack of spades that may fold. But in this spot, I think he really does not want to have a king of spades in his hand, because that's a hand that Negreanu could very easily have that would probably fold the river. And he also doesn't really want to have a 10 or a 9, because those pocket pairs are also very, very likely to fold. So let's take a look at what Negreanu should do here. Obviously, he calls off with all the aces, of course. It's interesting to see that he is supposed to call off with king, queen suited for a flush sometimes, right? He's also supposed to call off with a 10. Well, sorry, these are all flushes. So he's supposed to call off with pocket 10s sometimes as well, which is, you know, it seems aggressive, right? It seems a little bit loose, and I highly doubt most people are actually check calling here. So assuming the players get to the river with these same ranges, I like Doug Polk's bluff a lot. The problem, though, is that we may not even know if Negreanu check calls turn with a hand like pocket 10s. I have to imagine he will against this small bet, but if he does get to the river, is he check calling 10s on the river, like, ever? If he is, then, you know, Polk's bluff is probably just okay. But if he's not calling with 10s, then Doug Polk's just going to print tons of money in this scenario by jamming. And this all-in is solver approved. And if you think about the way this hand's played out, Polk's basically played this hand straight by the solver. He 4-bet it a tiny fraction of the time pre-flop, which, you know, maybe he's over-bluffing, maybe he's not. He bet the flop small, as the solver does half the time. Bet the turn, like the solver does every time. Jammed the river like the solver does every time. He played it perfectly. And, well, this time it didn't work out because he ran into the ace. And it's kind of interesting to see that Negreanu maybe played it by the solver, maybe not. But remember back to the flop. This hand is, in theory, supposed to raise the flop a decent amount of the time. And, you know, not all the time, but a decent amount of the time. As played, though, of course, Negreanu has easy call, call, call. And we've seen this throughout this match where Negreanu opts to do a whole lot of check calling, where he's essentially trying to induce Polk to bluff. I'm not sure if he's going to continue doing that online, because I have to think Polk's going to be able to play just reasonably fundamentally sound and know when to bluff and know when not to bluff. But so far, in a lot of the hands that I've seen, Polk has picked the right bluffs to bluff very, very frequently, and so far, it's working out pretty well for him. Not this time, though, and a nice pot goes towards Negreanu. So that's going to be it for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you want to get complete access to Poker Coaching Premium for free from November 16th to the 20th, make sure you check out pokercoaching.com/all-access. I want you to know everything that I have. It's completely free, not charging any money, no credit card required, none of that. Get in there, sign up, and enjoy the site. I want you to learn as much as you possibly can and become the best poker players you can. Good luck in your games. Have fun. Oh, by the way, if you're still here, click the like button. There's also a little bell option that you can be notified every time that I post a new video. That way you don't have to keep logging into YouTube to check. You'll be notified. So make sure you click the like and the notification button. Good luck in your games. Have a great, great day, and I'll talk to you next time.